with our favorite segment of all time here to close out this show. It's called The Take for 99, where we give you an expensive take for a cheap price in all of sports. We look forward to this segment every week, and now we shall speak. Zach, if you want to do the honors to kick us off, the mic is yours.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to stay in the NFL, and not only am I going to stay in the NFL, but I'm actually going to stay in the same division as the Bengals we just talked about. NFL OTAs, they started last week, right? And there are already a ton of different storylines, and I want to talk about a guy and a team that we love talking about on this show, and that is Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know that the biggest conversation around this team is the quarterback position after they added.
I'm sorry, Zach, man. You took mine. You know that, right? You literally took mine, but go ahead, bro. I'll come up with another one. Go ahead.
Oh, dude. I didn't mean to do this. I know Zay did a take on this last week, so, maybe we all just had to get it out. So we know what the biggest conversation around this team is, right? The quarterback position. They added both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Now, part of the reason why they got Russell Wilson in the first place was because they told him he was going to be the starting quarterback, right? And the job was his. But I don't think that's some binding agreement, right? Like, he has zero equity with the franchise. And I know for a fact that if he starts out poorly, the conversations are really going to begin. And I liked what Justin Fields had to say during his media availability during OTAs. He said that he doesn't plan on sitting on the bench the whole season, as he should, because we all know the opportunity is there. I don't know if Justin Fields is some great player, right? Like, he wasn't in Chicago, but we know for a fact that at this point in his career, Russell Wilson, he's not. When he's your quarterback, he might put up some solid numbers, but you're not going to win games. Justin Fields was in an awful situation in Chicago from the day he was drafted. And maybe, just maybe, he could be the quarterback of the future for the Steelers in what is a much better situation than what he was in Chicago. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2017. That's 7 years ago. That's unacceptable. And I do think Mike Tomlin is a very good coach. But it's getting to a point where if that streak, and I'm not talking about the non-losing season streak, I'm talking about the streak of not winning a playoff game in 7 years. Like, if that streak doesn't end this year, I think something has to change. And we're going to be asking ourselves, like, what exactly is the point of this? Tomlin knows he has to have a winning season and win playoff games this year. And with that being said, like, I don't think the leash for Russell Wilson, if he's not good, is going to be that long. Well, this situation reminds me a lot of the quarterback competition in New England between Cam Newton and Mac Jones when Mac was a rookie. Because prior to the start of that season, like right after Mac Jones was drafted, no one thought Mac Jones was going to be the starting quarterback. No one thought he was going to be ready, but he proved throughout training camp that he was better than Cam Newton. And then the next thing you know, Cam Newton is cut, Mac Jones is starting, and the Patriots are in the playoffs. Again, the Steelers don't owe Russell Wilson anything. They're only paying him $1 million a year, and if he gets off to a slow start, those fans are going to be cheering and chanting, "We want Fields. We want Fields." And rightfully so. I don't think the Steelers could be afraid to make a big move. Like, look at Arthur Smith, their new offensive coordinator. When he was in Tennessee, he made a controversial decision at quarterback. They benched Marcus Mariota, who was the former number 2 overall pick, for a guy that was already labeled a bust in Ryan Tannehill. And that decision right there turned out to change the trajectories of Derrick Henry's career and A.J. Brown's career and Mike Vrabel's career and Arthur Smith's career himself. I just think Justin Fields is a swing for the fences and Russell Wilson isn't good enough. So don't rule out Justin Fields starting from the beginning for this Steelers team. I think he has a legit shot. And my take for 99 is that Justin Fields needs to be the Steelers starting quarterback as soon as possible to save not only Mike Tomlin's non-losing season streak, but to save his job, period.
Yeah, Zach, right on cue. You know, I had 2 takes for 99 that I was battling, so you kind of actually made it easy for me because now I know where I'm going for sure. It's going to be back in the NBA, but before we get there, this was my first choice because I'm not sure if you know, but we are 99 days from the start of week 1. And why not would it be in 99 days that we talk about it for a take for 99? Okay, so I think for me, what I wanted to do initially was give my biggest storyline with 99 days left on a Take for 99. And for me, the biggest storyline of the offseason for me is the Steelers quarterback room, and if Mike Tomlin can save either Russell Wilson's career or Justin Fields' career. And I think they went over there for that reason. Russell Wilson wanted to go and play for Mike Tomlin. Justin Fields saw the devil in the detail. He knew Russell Wilson signed there, but he still said, you know what, Ryan Poles? If you want to honor my wishes, I want to be in Pittsburgh. He knew the devil in the detail. He still decided to go there. So what happens if Justin Fields does not win the job, right? What happens if Russell Wilson outperforms him? Will he turn his back on Mike Tomlin? Because this was a guy, the reports came out a couple weeks ago that he did not want to be mentored by Andy Dalton and by Nick Foles. Okay, he didn't want that leadership. He wanted to be the guy week one. So he lost the job the first couple games. Okay, he wasn't named the starter, and he didn't like that. And now you go to the Steelers, they're talking about putting him as a punt returner, and Justin Fields is like, nah, I'm not doing that. He came out last night, I'm not doing that. Okay, and then he literally sent Mike Tomlin a message a couple weeks ago saying, I'm not here to sit behind Wilson for a year. I want to start. So clearly he has his own plans, but what are the Steelers' plans? And I think that's going to be very interesting. You know, Russell Wilson, will he want to lose his job? Clearly not, right? And we know he thinks highly of himself as well. He called his former coach, Nathaniel Hackett, a business partner, not a head coach, a businessman, a business partner of his, okay? And we saw firsthand, you know, when he went to the Denver Nuggets game with Sean Payton, that even though you sitting courtside with your coach, that's not your friend. Oh, that's my buddy right here. We at the Nuggets game. Nope, I am not your man. I'm your coach, and you stink. Get out of here. I am paying you how much money this year to not quarterback my team? So clearly, Russell Wilson has a level of motivation to try to replicate some of his previous success that he had with Seattle. So can he do that in Pittsburgh? And if he doesn't, you know, win the job, or let's say he loses the job, will he turn on Mike Tomlin, the coach that he wanted to play for? I think it's a very interesting dynamic and take for sure.
I just think there's no upside of starting him if you're the Steelers. And I know the Steelers are kind of scarred from all the quarterback trouble they've had since Ben Roethlisberger retired. You know, we spoke a lot about the Falcons, kind of the same thing happening with them post Matt Ryan, and ironic because Arthur Smith is now here in Pittsburgh. But I just think, man, like the Steelers go ahead.
I mean, think about it. Arithmetic Smith, a.k.a. Arthur Smith, he couldn't resurrect Desmond Ridder's career. Mariota had success with him in the past. They couldn't duplicate that in Atlanta. The Steelers, they couldn't save Kenny Pickett's career. They botched his career. They couldn't save Mitch Trubisky's career. So will Justin Fields and Wilson be able to fix their careers in Pittsburgh when you got Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith there, who really haven't done anything since, you know, the Ryan Tannehill resurrection with Arithmetic Smith and the Ben Roethlisberger that was inherited by Mike Tomlin, excuse me. All right, Zach, I'm going to move back into the NBA for this one. And my take for 99 is you trade to win the game. I repeat, you trade to win the game. The Mavericks and the Celtics are going to be in the finals. And I understand that because the Timberwolves won last night, it may come off as premature. Folks, it hasn't been done. It's not happening. Dallas will be in the finals. The question is, when are they going to wrap up this series? Okay? You trade to win the game. The reason why the Celtics and the Mavericks are in the finals right now, or on the verge of being in the finals, is because they made the trades at the deadline or before the deadline to enhance and bolster their teams. When you look at starting with the Mavericks, adding a guy like Daniel Gafford with his physicality, his paint presence, he's giving them a spark in a two-man game with Derek Lively to be those consistent lob threats for Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to generate offense and easy looks at the rim. Okay, when you look at the moves that they made with PJ Washington, okay, that's a guy that I think complements Luka's game really well, being that he can be that threat, consistent threat on the three-point line in the corners. Luka has amazing court vision to find a guy like PJ Washington hiding out there on that three-point line. Okay, and I just think those moves really gave this team that spark, athleticism, and youth that they needed to really build around Luka and Kyrie. When Luka and Kyrie played last year, remind you, this is the same core that did not make the play-in game. Do you know how bad you have to be to not make the play-in game? And yet, the front office, salute to them, was able to find a way to build around the talented Luka and Kyrie Irving. We knew they had the skill, but did they have the surrounding parts to complement each other's game and modify their games and vice versa to put together a contender that will go on, if they handle business, to be in the finals? When you look at the Celtics and you look at the Jrue Holiday trade won them game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. He had 28 points. He had an all-around good game defensively. He forced a couple turnovers. Tyrese Halliburton had that late turnover that iced the game. That was because of the pestiness of Jrue Holiday being all up in his grill. I am the real Leel. Okay, game 4 or 3, I think it was game 3. He had that game-sealing steal. He made the championship plays with his championship experience that he has winning a championship, something that Boston has yet to do. Okay, when you look at the Kristaps Porzingis trade, we all should agree that if the Celtics are going to win the championship, it's because they have Porzingis that's going to be back with his ability to be versatile in the sense that you could run the pick and pop, you know, the rim protection, the spacing, being 7 foot, being able to shoot the rock from deep. Okay, both of these trades from these teams, these trades is why you trade. It's really to win the game. The Pacers, right? They traded for Pascal Siakam. Guess what? They made the Eastern Conference Finals. The Timberwolves, they traded for Rudy Gobert a couple years ago. It got off to a rocky start, but guess what? He won an All-NBA defensive, I believe he won the Defensive Player of the Year, okay? And he was a big reason why they got past the Suns with his ability to switch, even though that's not really his strength. He did so against the Suns, okay? He defended the pick and roll well against the Suns. That's why they are in the Western Conference Finals. So, Zach, in closing, my take for 99, you trade to win the game.
Yeah, Herm Edwards said it best, right? I agree. I think it's a good take because each of these teams, no matter if it's Boston against Minnesota, Boston against Dallas, you mentioned it, like each of them made trades that were pretty controversial at the time. Like I brought it up when we talked about the Celtics. Like there were a lot of Celtic fans that said, you can't trade Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart, he's the heart and soul of the team. You know, this guy has been here since day one, since Brad Stevens got here. Like, what are we doing? And then they get Porzingis for him, and then they're still able to upgrade with Jrue Holiday in that same spot. You know, Dallas, you look at the moves they made at the deadline, but how about them, you know, taking a chance on Kyrie Irving when his value was at his absolute lowest? Like, there weren't really a lot of other teams that wanted him, and they still gave up multiple first-round picks to go get this guy. And that's a move that's really obviously benefited them. And the Timberwolves got a lot of flack giving up, you know, multiple first-round picks for Gobert, but they built their team to specifically stop Denver. Like the guy who built Denver, Tim Connelly, he left Denver, went to Minnesota, and literally his number one priority was, how do we build a team to stop Denver? And we saw what happened in the playoffs this year. But Lil, I'll ask you a question, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot. You know, if you need a second or two to think about it, you know, take your time. I'll think about it as well. Do you have a team in mind? I know we still have the finals to think about. You know, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this offseason. But, like, do you have a team in mind that you're looking at and saying, okay, you need to be next in line in terms of, you know, you trade to win the game? Who is that team that needs to make a trade to win the game this offseason to really put themselves over that hump?
I love that question. Off the rip, I would say the 76ers will be the number one team on that list for me. You're talking about Joel Embiid, who has not made the Eastern Conference Finals yet in his illustrious career, full of MVP consideration and winning an MVP and winning playoff games. It's time. It's time to take the next leap and try to make a finals. And I think they need that one more scorer, somebody that in the non-Embiid minutes could help Maxey out tremendously with the scoring duties. Somebody like Jimmy Butler you trade for. Somebody like maybe Paul George is a guy that you look at. Maybe Brandon Ingram is a guy that you look at. I think they need that one extra piece to really go out there. The Knicks is a little bit, I don't think they need to. Like, I think the Knicks could run it back and we could be right back there. But if we want to make a move, my ideal candidate, ironically, even though I said Mikal Bridges, Lauri Markkanen would be a guy that I would like to target personally. I think his spacing and his ability to shoot being that big could really open up things tremendously for a guy like Jalen Brunson. That would be a move I would look into. Unfortunately, I don't see how it benefits the Jazz. So I think the 76ers will be in that category of you trade to win the game.
Yeah, so I'll respond to that. And I agree with you on the Sixers, but, why not? Let's get into the Knicks a little bit. I agree with you, especially Danny Ainge. Like, we know what this guy wanted for Donovan Mitchell. Like, he's probably going to be asking a lot for Lauri Markkanen. And I brought up Bridges last week. I still think he's the ideal target. Let me ask you about this name, though. What do you think about DeMar DeRozan as a target for the Knicks? Do you think that would be something that would be worth it? I don't think you would really have to give up that much to get him. I think his scoring could help. I think he's a veteran player that fits the Thibodeau mold. He's not going to complain. He's been in this league a really long time. He's an old school guy. He's, he hasn't won a championship, but, he's seeking that. He's motivated. What do you think about DeMar DeRozan as a possible addition for the Knicks?
Yeah, it depends on what we have to give up.
What about Randall, Mitchell Robinson, and maybe a single first?
That's a possible deal we can pull the trigger on. I mean, look, DeMar DeRozan has been consistent throughout his career. He's the definition of consistent. He loves his mid-range looks. I think he's one of the clutch players in the NBA. I think this year he had the most clutch shots in the fourth quarter in the regular season. So that's a guy that potentially I think we could look at. I also think the dream of the dreams, right? But then again, you have to look at the risk that comes with that. Maybe LeBron James. Okay, maybe we sign LeBron James, a sign in trade, right? Maybe that's something that we look at. But would we want to do that? Would we want to, invest in LeBron James, who is 40 years old, on his way out? That'd be like an Aaron Rodgers Jets situation. But then you do have the picks. If you're able to hold on to the picks, then you can build your future beyond LeBron James. So I think there's a lot of options for the Knicks, and we can run it back as well. So yeah, that's where I would leave it.
Let me throw one more team out there I wanted to hit on. So I think we did this a couple weeks ago when you mentioned Jimmy to Philly as your take for 99. Again, I wouldn't love that move. I think it's 5 years too late. I think if I'm Philly, like, I'm targeting a little bit more depth, and I think you need a scorer. So if I'm them, I would look at a deal with New Orleans to get Ingram and a backup big in Valanciunas. Like, they really need a guy as Embiid insurance to go in there if he ever gets hurt, even in the non-Embiid minutes. That's what killed them in the Knicks series. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm looking at adding some more depth. So I'd be looking into a package deal with New Orleans for both those guys. But let me say this. If Jimmy Butler were to get traded, and he might not, we just don't know if Pat Riley wants to give him that max extension that he's seeking. I'm going to throw a team out there for Jimmy Butler that I think would be a perfect fit, and that's the Houston Rockets. I think if you pair Ime Udoka with Jimmy Butler, that is a match made in heaven. And I think that team needs a little bit more oomph after the Şengün devastating injury. He was such a good young player. He had a phenomenal year, good young player, but he's going to be coming off a major injury. And I think if you have that core of Fred VanVleet, a guy that's won a championship, Dylan Brooks, a guy that has a chip on his shoulder, and we know that he comes to work every day and loves to defend and take the other team's best player. You add a veteran like Jimmy Butler. You have a guy in Jabari Smith that I think is ready to break out. I think that team is going to be looking to shop Jalen Green. I think he could be an asset that some teams are interested in. Pretty young, had some moments. He could just be looking for a new situation. If Jimmy Butler does get traded this offseason, I'm not sure if he does, but I think if that happens, Houston would be the perfect fit for him.
Yeah, I mean, Ime is a defensive coach. When he coached Boston, they prioritized locking you up defensively and that attention to detail defensively. Now with Joe Mazzulla, it's all about following the math and the three-point shot. I think Jimmy Butler and his style of play, his physicality, his mindset will fit well with a guy like Ime Udoka. My only thing is that you're subtracting Jimmy Butler. I think Miami's another team in that you trade to win the game category that could benefit from a Donovan Mitchell to bring alongside a guy like Bam and Jimmy Butler to try to make that run and knock off Boston and Milwaukee.
Yes, sir, man. Hey, always a great time.
All right, y'all. Make sure y'all like and subscribe to the channel. This wraps up and concludes another episode of 99 Pod. And Zach, as always, I'm looking forward to the next show that we do.